This conference will now be recorded.
This is PAR06 2019 Facility Plan Meeting with the State Construction Department. We'll introduce ourselves first.
Good afternoon. My name is Brandon Finney with the State Construction Department. My role with the team is to identify all the capital construction needs for the districts and present those to various legislative bodies in anticipation of appropriations to solve the remedy.
Hi, I'm Raj Dami. I'm the accounting analyst, and I work with these guys to provide them information from the AIM database to the best of my ability.
Troy Decker, Planning. My role is quality control, make sure we abide by all state statutes, rules, and regs in the facility planning process. Make sure we have clear data that in our database that allows us to report to the legislature, committees, and also to our commission. And then just make sure there's clear communication between us and school districts and everybody has voice.
And I'm Steve McDonald, your regional project manager, and I'm just a liaison between the district and the SFD on helping you guys meet your major maintenance and capital spending needs.
Amber Leach with State Construction, Policy Planning Analyst. My role is during the time working with the districts to get the documentation ready for today's facility plan meeting.
Terry Gardenhire with PAR06. I'm the facility director.
Ray Schulte, PAR06 superintendent.
Stephanie Bell, treasurer of the school board, and I also serve as a member on our facilities committee. That's it.
Well, all right. Well, welcome. Paul Severson usually joins us. He may not be able to. I think he's in Casper today. So maybe I'll just move him there. So a couple things, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off our video camera since you saw our happy faces today. And we're going to go ahead and continue on. We have some streaming difficulties sometimes. So with that, one of the things I like to say about facility plans, and it's true, every once in a while the governor's office asks for a facility plan. Legislators, individual legislators can ask for them. And we do provide those. So what this really is it's a visual. It's usually 20 to 30 pages, give or take. But someone can take this, look at it, read it, and have a really good understanding of your school district and the issues in it and where you sit on different prioritization lists and so on by simply reading this. And that's why we bring in a lot of visuals. Accuracy is really important for data because we do send over to WDE data on an annual basis, I think in April, Raj?
Yep.
Okay, and that's based on our database, and so we have you guys check that stuff so that you end up getting the correct calculations that WDE needs in order to provide your block grant funds. So that's an important part of this process, and we do all that stuff on the front end of this so that when we get to the meeting, we have, well, today about 8 people, we talk about the real important things and we're not looking at some database trying to clarify whether or not it's accurate. So that's why what Amber's role is, and I think she does a great job of that before the meeting. One of the things we improved on last year and this year as well is we started going to the county GIS site and getting acreages so we knew those were official through the county and stuff like that. And then we brought in some Google images. They're not wonderful, but all they are is just illustrative of what you guys, the sites, the campuses, the properties you guys do have. So that's just illustrative. So at the first of this, guys, I'm going to kind of just whip right along. It's a formality, but it's housekeeping. But if you want to say something, that's fine. Just flag me. And then we're going to slow down as we hit some other stuff and have some good discussion. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the acreages. The district has reviewed the acreages, verified accuracy. This does impact your WDE, your groundskeeper allowances for taking care of your campuses. So thanks for doing that. I just said the database is up to date. Brandon, did you have something?
I was just wondering that big piece of vacant land. 35 acres. Okay.
Yeah, this is that Beacon Hill they're bringing for this month.
Yep.
Last couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we do want to talk about disposition of property here, guys. Looks like a state statute or a bill is in motion here that might have an impact on your disposition of Beacon Hill or your old bus barn. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then, oh yeah. Okay. So I guess maybe we'll just talk about it right now. So anyway, House Bill 1, I know you guys have a tracking mechanism as school districts to look at a lot of stuff that affect you from educational side, but also obviously there are those bills that affect your operations with regard to facilities and stuff like that. So I can't remember, was it last week or week before we had the commission meeting? You guys brought some questions forward, and I thought they were good questions, and we're looking into answering those. But right now, one of the things that we do know, and I'll have Brandon talk about this just a little bit on the front end of this, we do talk about legislative bills later on, but one of the changes is disposition of property. And so, Brandon, if you'd walk us through this, I think this is perhaps on the governor's, or is he already signed at governor's desk?
Yeah, this is Brandon. So there's been a couple of vetoes sent back to the legislature, but I believe it's right in the limbo. If the legislature does want to override the vetoes, I think they have the ability, obviously, to do that. But as it stands now, the bill incorporates this new language, talks about the disposition of land, and it goes through these scenarios. Essentially, not being an attorney, but the way I read it, once you guys sell an asset, land or building, then those funds go back into the state capital construction account. So the receivables come in, we collect them, and then deposit those funds. And they do not reside in the district's account, which is where they used to reside after the sale of a piece of property. So with this may change your guys' plan on what you're doing, or I guess maybe we just talk about it. What's your thoughts?
So this is Stephanie Bell. Could you just direct, I'm looking at the engrossed copy of House Bill 1. Could you just direct me to either the page where the language is, or?
Yep, just a second. Go to, let's pull up the bill. Yeah, we'll just pull it up.
I'm assuming it's this bottom one.
Go up. Go to enrolled at the very top.
Oh, sorry.
These are the enrolled acts. Right here, slide that out. And if you're on the Legislative Service website, are you on there, Stephanie?
I am.
Yeah, so on the bottom, you'll see one that says veto version or budget, governor's veto. Click on that.
Very bottom.
And then, yeah, scroll all the way down pretty much. Let's see. Yep, page 63, there we go, right here. So go to there, here's where it's at.
Right here.
Section 353. So from the effective date of this act until June 30th of 2020, this will be the new process when a district liquidates a facility.
So just a simple question. Should we effectively sell that prior to June 30th, then the new statute would not apply?
Well, let's see when the effective date is. So scroll down. I see where you're heading. Effective date. Time approved date. So effective immediately upon all acts necessary as bill to become law. That right there, Article 4, Section 8. The question is what is effective immediately? I think it's March 1st. I'm not 100% sure. The standard is what you just said, and it's July 1st. That's the standard, but effective immediately, I think, is right now. And you can see the governor signs the date. You can scroll down right there.
Yeah.
So if it's not right then, effective immediately, then it's really, really, really soon. So do you have a buyer already lined up? Are you in escrow with that property?
No, we are not. Of course, we would have never made any move to sell that property before having spoken to you, which we did, in anticipation of this. Well, gentlemen, this is a problem.
Yeah, you guys had a plan moving forward. Commission thought it was a good plan, but now state statute looks like it's changed upon governor's signature or shortly thereafter.
Well, Roy, this is Ray, why would any district sell any property with that being the rule?
This is Brandon. Yesterday we had a facility plan, and I think here's an example. They had a 50 to 70,000 square foot facility that's in their mind and in the condition score is not a favorable school to educate kids in, and they're trying to keep it limping. They're not using it, and it's draining their block grant checkbook. So they're saying, hey, we want to get rid of this asset because it's diluting and it's a liability. So in their scenario, I think they would rather just dump it and get it off their books than to dilute their block grant checkbook.
And major maintenance.
And major maintenance, yeah. So that's a scenario where they don't really care. They want to just get it off their portfolio. It's cheaper for them to do that than to keep using their major maintenance and block grant money to keep it going.
But we recognize too, Ray, that you had a much grander idea than that. You guys wanted to basically build a bus barn, and so we get that. It was a really good idea. So anyway, but we guys, not to rain on your party, we just want to make sure we now that we know this and we found it, we just wanted to share it with you.
You'd mentioned that the governor vetoed a couple things.
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't following this legislation to track that, but does that impact this bill in any way?
It does. Those items that are vetoed, in the section that he actually helped the school districts out is on the security funds. Let me see if we can find that real quick.
Is that 312? I can't remember.
This
one, I don't think it's going to allow me
to. It doesn't. Just 1 second. I think it's on page 40 some. So what was going on is, we gotta find it here.
Actually, to be honest with you,
Go back to the other one.
I was thinking I threw that on the bottom here, but I think
I go to there.
This one.
I hit Control F and find and type in security. Roll through that bad boy. Here we go. Right there. So if you look down right at the bottom where Troy will have it highlighted, where it says the commission shall only allow the expenditures. This is on the 4.9 million where the commission requested an additional appropriations for security projects. The legislature said, well, you can only spend it on these items. The department, the commission, the districts, even the select committee wanted to open that up to all 20 elements. So the districts could, have a little more flexibility. If you go then to the vetoed version, what page is that real quick? The governor struck that page 46. Right there. Yeah, so
we were right there.
So you see at the bottom, the governor said, no, let's open it back up to all 20. So this is a good thing for the security. The bad thing is the stuff that we just were looking at that obviously in your scenario does not help.
Ray, did you follow that?
Yeah, a little bit. I guess I'm a little, I wasn't aware that there was a move to make a change to capture school district properties And did that say until June of 2020 or something?
Yeah, it's got a sunset in there.
All right, so from what I understand, the only solution is for us to delay building.
Yeah. We'll just have to buy more rat bait and just stay where we're at.
Yeah, I'm sure it's extremely difficult and disappointing. I think, when did we find this? Maybe this week?
Yeah, I found about a day or so ago.
Yeah, we actually ran across this about 2 days ago, guys. So it's not something we've been holding or anything. We had no idea when you guys went in front of the commission that this was any part of the bill whatsoever.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing this forward. I feel tremendously foolish because after lobbying on a number of different things, this certainly would have moved to the top of my radar. So I thank you guys for that.
Okay, guys. So Dawn, did you join us? We saw you kind of logged in.
Yes.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. I apologize for being tardy. I was stuck on a call downstairs and then discovered the wrong thing.
Well, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so guys, we've kind of pointed that out, and I guess we'll just go on. There's obviously nothing we can do about it. We're not the legislature, and again, we didn't see it till about 2 days ago. So it's something that's recently, either they put it in recently or we've just been missing it. But we try to track that stuff, and we're aware. But until it's signed by the governor, I guess it really, you can speculate all you want until it's actually done. Property profiles. We'll move on to these. You guys have reviewed your property profiles, verify accuracy. It has to do with square footage. Allowable square footage is important for major maintenance payments. So we send this data over to WDE, and they do their things in operation and maintenance payments through block grant. They send us ADM and also enrollment each year, and we calculate the major maintenance based on allowable square footages. You don't have any building leases, so we're good there. You've reviewed the enhancements. This is important because we report these to the select committee each year on an annual basis. So I just said AIM database is up to date. As I type and do stuff, if you guys see something you want changed, let me know. It's just trying to represent. Want to make sure we do responses to all the portions. So with that now, we've got this 2697, the Valley Recreation Building, built onto the Valley Elementary School. So I guess we already pulled last year the Sunset and Livingston funds, and we're going to redo those once your capacity drives a project. Valley work is 100% complete. No further spending is planned. There's $48,380.04. So state statute requires us to review any unspent funds and to revert those. So I think we're done unless the project manager or school district have something else say. You guys are past the warranty stage on warranty period on Valley?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go and just say revert funds here. I'll say project is complete, revert funds.
How'd the project go for you guys?
It went pretty well.
Good.
Okay, security, Stephen.
So as you guys are aware, 2014, the legislature appropriated $9 million to be split between the districts to address security concerns. It was capital money, and the one stipulation that they put on the spending of that money is that it had to be spent on one of these security items that you see highlighted here before you. There are 20 total security items, and they again mandated that money had to be used on one of these 8 highlighted items there for you. As we move down, we can see you guys have a pretty good grasp of this because you pretty much spent all of your security capital money. If we can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, it looks like you guys have done a real good job of rolling out and spending all your security capital money, and we do appreciate that. Currently, as we spoke of a minute ago, the legislature is considering allocating an additional $4.9 million in security capital money. That's a decision that will be made next year. If they do decide to allocate that $4.9 million, it's going to be freed up so where you can spend it on any of those 20 security items that you have a need on. So you're going to have more flexibility with that $4.9 million. And again, it looks like in that bill they tried to stipulate that it was going to stay on these items, but the governor wiped that out. So it does look like if that 4.9 does get appropriated, you'll have a lot more freedom with that. So we'll look forward to that possibly. Moving on to your 10% security major maintenance, again, the legislature passed a ruling that would allow you to use 10% of your major maintenance balance on security issues. This money, again, is freed up. It has different rules than regular major maintenance. Yeah, you're actually able to add features with this money, change systems and do things like that with this money that are security related and identified in your needs assessment there. So it looks like you guys still have a balance of a little over $200,000 of your major maintenance that you're allowed to spend on security issues. The one thing that I did want to stipulate here is that it does not appear that that's something that's going to be an ongoing allowance from the legislature. It's looking like that they might shut that down going forward. So what we need to pay special attention to is just that we don't overspend what you have in that 10% security major maintenance, because it's likely not to be backfilled and likely not to be allowed to continue further past what you see here. Now, Troy might have some information. He talked a little bit yesterday about a 2019 pot maybe being filled. I'll let him talk about that in a moment, but it does look here by your comments that you do have some ideas on spending some of this security 10% money. So I'm here to work with you on that, and we'll just again stipulate that we don't want to overspend what you have there. Last thing I'll say is there are other funding avenues for security remedies. Department of with Homeland Security and Department of Justice have grants that are out. Others districts have been able to find and get some grants from Homeland Security and Department of Justice. So that would be a district thing if you want to go out and look for those. They are available. I do have some districts in my region that have had some success with obtaining those. So if you guys have any questions or concerns, I might be able to point you to a budget that, or excuse me, to a district that has had some success looking after those funds. So just wanted to throw that out that there are other avenues.
So in this biennium, session law allows major maintenance up to 10% categorized for security funds again in this upcoming payment in September or July, 75% of that payment, and then September is 25%. But at any rate, it'll be about 130 more thousand categorized as 10% major maintenance security. So you can increase the almost give 342,000. Any questions on that?
Yeah, if more money is available in the future for security, do you have to use it on the remaining, what is it, 11 items up there, or could you go back and spend it on one of the original 8?
You could spend it on any of the 20 of those that you see there, the original 8 and the remaining 11. You'll be open to spend it on any of those 20.
As long as a deficiency was identified, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so explain that one just a little more, Stephen.
Well, in your security assessment that I believe FEA did a while back, there were scores on your security systems. And again, to use this money, you'll need to have an identified deficiency on that security assessment. And you can find that information in AIM, where you scored on what things.
So if there was a brand new building and there were no deficiencies identified, you could not spend it on that building. It's got to be a system identified within a specific building that had a deficiency that generated a payment from the last appropriation.
Troy, when is that 4.9 million? When did you say when that might be available?
It says effective immediately, so for rough numbers, say the bill becomes effective in March. By the time we get the money, it's usually 2 weeks after. And then our accounting team will set up the funds, which will take about a week. So I'd say April, the checkbooks will be ready to be turned on. Now in the bill, in House Bill 1, it does say a process approved by the commission. So what we're going to do is we're waiting for the bill to see if it becomes effective. But essentially, districts would submit to Stephen in each scenario. You want to do a work on any of the 20, you would submit essentially a work order. It'll roll to Rob. Once he approves it, he'll set up the project and turn the money on. And you have the flexibility to go to any of the 20 on, like I was saying, or Stephen, as long as it's an identified security need.
So this is Ray. We're looking at intercom systems, some bell system up, and would that fall under the communication piece?
The other one. Did you follow that, Steve?
I guess we'll submit it and find out.
Yeah, and then there's I just thought of something. So he's asking a communication. Say that one more time. What elements what you're submitting on?
I can't remember the number on it, but there's one for mass communicating and
49, you said?
last at this, intercom systems were considered part of that.
I personally don't know, but I like this with you. One thought, right there, do you guys use that, what was the WDE stuff that they were just mentioning for communications?
That much?
Yeah. So this is Brandon. I just want to clarify one thing, thinking about the whole process. So if the money gets turned on in March, we'll get it all set up, but we have to do a commission established process. You see right here, it says commission shall only approve security projects to a commission established process. So I'm thinking April, they don't have a meeting. May will have to take them the established process that we recommend. They got to approve it in May. At the end of the May meeting, we could kick it off. So say June 1st, because we want to make sure the commission approves. Yeah, because we're going to open it up and make sure they're fine with it. Now, just so you know, we have a process we've been developing, but the commission hasn't approved it per the statute yet. That'll probably take place in May.
Well, and even I'm just asking the 4.95 million.
Mm-hmm.
How's that going to be divvied up?
We go back probably the same methodology that was calculated to disperse those funds.
And then do percentages.
And then it's done, yep.
Gotcha.
And that money will be available this year?
It's coming in probably March, but the accounting team will set it all up in March. April, we'll do a test pilot and establish a process. And then in May, we'll take it to the commission for them to approve it. And in June, districts will hit the ground running. In theory.
And my best answer for you on that is, yes, I believe that that money, those 20 identified items do include the mass communication piece. But we also talked about your 10% major maintenance, that we can possibly use that as well. So I think we'll be able to get you taken care of.
When they're asking for definitions of each of these categories, you guys have that. You have it clearly spelled out. Do they have a copy of that?
It's in AIM. You can get a copy of the safety and security assessment in AIM.
Okay.
Or not in AIM, on our, excuse me, I'm sorry, on our
Website?
state website.
Website?
Yeah,
Okay.
under under bid docs.
We've got a copy of all the different elements and what the definitions of those are.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, any other comments or questions on security? If not, we'll move on. Okay, let's look at capacity here. We do keep track of capacity within your schools. You can see you got some that are a little bit more full than others. So some of your elementaries are less, but at least two of these are also rural. So nothing that's super high, but you guys are still up there. Enrollment projections, we get information, or we get the enrollment from WDE each December. They send it to us, but it's the October 1 enrollment number. And we basically go 10 years trailing data from that WDE report, and then we go out 10 years in the future and project 10 years of growth or lack thereof just through a mathematical calculation. And this becomes important when we're looking to remedy something. We look out in the future. State statute says 5 years after substantial completion, and then in a specific grade configuration, then we look at a number 5 years after substantial completion and identify a capacity to shoot at. How this works basically is you can kind of follow like this year's 12th grade. If you kind of stair step it, you can see what they're, and I'm just going really quick here, but somewhere back here in about 2004, and you can just follow the enrollment of those students and from grade to grade and how many students progress from one grade to another, how many students are there. What we do is we actually do the transition, the survival rate from one grade to the next. So like for instance, 2008 kindergarten to 2009 first grade, 2009 kindergarten, 2010 first grade. And what we do is we do an average of 10 years trailing data. And then basically we say, well, out of all your kindergartners, 96% of your kindergartners advance to first grade when you average the last 10 years of projection or of actual enrollments. So I don't know, Ray, if you guys, if you do hold any kindergartners back, if not developmentally ready, or they're leaving the district, but one way or the other, 96% are going from kindergarten to first grade on average. Then you lose just a few more in first grade, and then you guys in second grade, you pick up some, you're 102 survival rate, and then you pretty well maintain. And right here, I don't know what grade it is, but about the time they're almost to first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade, you guys are getting a really good influx. Are your rural schools K through 5?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what's happened is your rural school students that are coming to the in-town schools. So that's why that's there, guys. And then you go to 7th grade, you lose a few, you maintain. So actually this isn't bad at all. I think you guys got a really good survival rate. The junior year, that 94% is typical across almost every district in the state. And then they usually pick up and get a few more back to graduate. Your kindergarten's important, obviously, because those students, but you guys are steady Eddie. This is a really consistent number. Your average is 164. Some years you have a few more than others. Back in the 2010 to about 2014 range, you had about 170 is your average, give or take 173. You guys have dropped off a little here, but consistent, nothing dramatic decreasing. And then as a district, of course, and it doesn't look like it a lot, but for anybody in finances, superintendent and trustees, I know each student, you guys went from 2011 last year to 1,957 this year on October. But we recognize, and obviously you recognize, that every one of those students means about $15,000 of funding coming into appropriations coming into your district. So we recognize that's a big hit, and you guys just have to adjust accordingly. At any rate, nothing's alarming here for capacity. Any comment on capacity district-wide?
I don't know if this needs to be brought up, but should we decide to begin what's called a developmental kindergarten? So we would potentially be looking at 2 additional classrooms that those students would go from that developmental kindergarten into regular K the following year. Would that impact?
Yeah, if those, and right now those students are what? Are they, I mean, you just don't admit them into kindergarten, or are they in developmental preschool, or talk about that just a little bit.
So there'd be 2 different scenarios. You'd have some parents that knew because of the age of their child that maybe they would struggle developmentally. And so for some parents economically, they'll just go ahead and send their children to kindergarten. And we generally try not to hold kids back. Not a lot of research that's positive in the long run. And so either they choose to keep their kids home, give them the gift of a year, or they send them to us. And so those kids who are being kept home that still meet the statutory age for kindergarten, that would be a good option for those parents to go ahead and send their children, knowing that it wasn't the expectations of full kindergarten.
Right. Ray, you probably know more about that. I know they have like half-time kindergarten as well. In some cases, I do know. What I know is that whatever WDE sends over to us as kindergarten, we include that within our capacity calculations. So that would actually count toward the number of students in brick and mortar buildings. But outside of that, Ray, I don't know the answer to the funding, but I assume that funding will come through WDE on those students if they're admitted to kindergarten, even if it's a special program that maybe holds them back or doesn't advance them immediately, but then the second year advances them to a regular kindergarten.
Correct. Yeah,
okay.
I think if we put in a developmental kindergarten program, it would be, for WDE, it would be just counted as another classroom, another section within the K-12 program.
Yep.
I have a question. The chart you're showing says non-inclusive of Valley, Wapiti, and Hart Mountain. What does that mean?
Yeah, what that means is those students are remaining K through 5. So what we're looking at here is the in-town numbers. So for instance, Ray, like K5 here, but what we're doing is we recognize that you're not struggling with capacity out of your rural schools. And when you guys were getting close on capacity, we didn't want to penalize you for students out or include students who are out in Wapiti or Valley for elementary, because we know they had their own schools. So we didn't include them in the capacity calculations in town. And then Hart Mountain, that's your alternative school, correct?
Yeah, yes, it is. We have about 30 students in the alternative school. Are they part of the numbers? Are they part of that 1957 number?
No. So what we've done is your alternative school students have their own, I guess, building. You wouldn't really call building, but own space that's designated to them. So we do not include them into your high school numbers. Yep.
Okay. Well, I think the only reason I asked the question, with the start of the alternative high school a couple years ago, we tend to have about 10 students every year that leave the Cody High School and go to the alternative school. And that's going to show our senior class with a little more drop off than maybe it used to have.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't know that it makes a whole lot of difference. I'm not sure it's going to matter a whole lot.
Right.
But maybe that's where a little bit of that pullback is from them actually going to the all school.
Right. And then, yeah, that's right. And then their enrollment, of course, is reported in the Heart Mountain School instead of the regular high school. Yep. Okay.
And I don't know if that really makes much difference unless we're looking at a construction project. I don't know that that matters.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think we would get down to more of we would be interested in looking at that and seeing what impact it does have in your facilities. And you're correct. You guys are just a little bit over 50% in your high school. So right now it's pretty well, it's probably meaningless to even consider or think about it or talk about it. Okay. Statewide, we do keep track of capacity statewide. We have high capacity according to School Facilities Commission rules and regs. We have anybody over 100% is high capacity. Then we have some medium from 95 to 100, and then low capacity 90 to 95. We do this because we want to keep capacity concerns on the radar and make sure that at least we're informing the legislature and our commission of concerns. It's kind of interesting because last year there were only 2 schools on high capacity. And so, of course, we've gone through that energy sector downturn. And so you look at this, you go, well, golly, we had to have students leave the state several years ago because of energy downturn and stuff like that. But what happened was the commission went ahead and did a restricted capacity. They changed restricted capacity for kindergarten through 3rd grade for rooms up to 25 students. And then they got a huge amount of pushback from the districts. So they went back this last year or fall, can't remember when that was, and they changed it back to a restricted capacity of 16. So it does correlate with the funding model for 16 to 1 in those grades, not mandated by state statute, but chosen by the commission to do so. So that's why we have a bunch of elementary schools that now have popped up in the high capacity percentage category. The other thing that's kind of interesting here, and because everybody sees Casper is 300 seats down, so the elementary schools that they're using, they're lacking about 300 seats. But the fact is they closed 4 elementary schools at 920 seats, so we don't anticipate them qualifying for any requests for capital funding for an elementary school. But anyway, this is pretty well just a short descriptor of statewide. Anybody below 90% we don't even track. We do track, we just don't put them on this list. So what I did say here, Ray, was district has sufficient capacity for enrolled students at this time. You guys don't have a charter school, so we can go by that. FCI is Facility Condition Index. Every building has an FCI score, and what it is the measurement of deferred maintenance. The higher deferred maintenance, or the more the deferred maintenance, the higher the FCI score. So for instance, this is page 1 of our educational buildings, the FCI score or the condition index list score. And on page 1, there's about 30 buildings. You can see the higher the number, could make that a little larger for you. The higher the number, the more deferred maintenance, which means the poorer condition the building's in. And then it kind of comes down into the 0.34s. So for you guys, you have your middle school observatory. I'm ashamed to say I've never been in that. It must be one of the very few buildings I haven't been in the state. But that is at a 0.34, 1996, 874 square feet. Then your high school stock activity center is at about a 0.32. So you guys are about 25, 30 down there on the educational list. Not horrible scores by any means, but they represent deferred maintenance within those buildings. There are a total of 400 and some educational buildings in the state. This is just page 1 or 30 of the 400 and some. And then here are the ancillary buildings or the support buildings. You guys have that bus yard one at 0.43. And then your newer bus barn on that side also is a 0.32, which isn't horrible, but I know you guys talked about, you mentioned rats or mice or fleas or whatever's happening, termites, and you guys have had a concern about that quite a bit. And in just a moment here, we're going to talk about the next condition assessment and informing the condition assessment team of things will help them accurately see those buildings. One of the difficulties on support buildings right now. So even though you guys are, what are you, about 6, 7 down here, 6, 7 on an ancillary building, don't get too excited. And the reason is because this state statute requires the School Facilities Commission to prioritize educational buildings before support buildings. And so, well, there's not a lot of money going toward educational buildings, let alone support buildings. And so we would anticipate, unless something dramatically changes in the economy or how the legislature decides to spend money, we would anticipate these buildings being maintained by major maintenance and no capital monies flowing that way, unless there's some unique circumstance that would motivate the commission or the state legislature to consider funding an ancillary building. Any questions on that? Go ahead.
On that first page, we did some work on that middle school observatory, so I don't know, Terry, if that's...
It's in excellent shape at this point. So when we do the next facility assessments and
It'll be
next fall, it'll be
reassessed. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad Terry answered that. So this is just your buildings. You know, we showed you the other list. This is just your buildings from, you know, your highest scoring, most deferred maintenance to your low scoring. In reality, pretty good shape. Nothing to be ashamed of at all. You guys have good buildings. Again, your bus barn, which is a thorn in your side, I think. Those are right up there. Really don't really have any necessarily comments on this. Can I say something like the district? I'll say something like the district continues to be concerned about the bus barn buildings. Something like that, Ray? Do you want me to put something different? Is that accurate?
Not strong enough.
We can't include any swear words in this. Sorry.
Right, well, I've got a few to offer, but so what we've been somewhat hesitant to say is that as far as the maintenance building, we're concerned about it being a health and safety issue. And that was the reason why we had plans to build a new one, because we simply know that there's going to be no state funds available to redo it. And it's stronger than we are concerned. Somebody else can offer a different word.
Yeah, I would agree with Stephanie. Maybe the district continues to be seriously concerned, or the district has serious concerns. Maybe that's better. The district has serious concerns.
Oops. Bus barn, buildings condition, due to health and safety. And it's more than just, well, I did condition. Do you want to put the word condition in there, Ray, or is that good? Or let's see. Concerns about the bus barn buildings condition. How about
What's the health and
condition?
safety specifically, just in case we get asked?
Is it the rats, mice?
Well, a
Mold?
lot of rodents. We've had,
Mold.
air quality, the mold. We've abated some of the building, but it's just the size of the building and the fact that it's an old metal building built into the side of a hill. You can abate it, but it doesn't last. That abatement doesn't last very long. It's just, if that makes sense. But Terry, I interrupted.
We've got mold issues, you got rodent infestation. When they abated the one office, the dead rodent buildup in the wall was 3 feet deep.
Jeez.
Oh, my word. Jeez.
Yes. The guy who was doing the abatement was just floored. Said he'd never seen anything like that. So that's an example.
So
Testing because we're scared of what the results are going to.
abatements.
Hey, when you said abatement, is there asbestos in there as well?
There was not in the area they worked on, if I remember right, but that's not to say there might not be some elsewhere in that building.
Okay.
It's old enough that it could contain some asbestos.
It's an old metal, it's a metal building that was built right next to a pretty steep embankment. And over the years, the erosion, the dirt came down, settled against the metal siding. The mice and the rats and whatever got up into the walls. So we abated the walls up to the ceiling in the offices, but we didn't go above the ceilings. I don't know what those 20-foot sidewalls, we just went up 8 feet, but it was a pretty quick project. I was going to say a quick fix, but we didn't really fix anything. We just kind of patched over it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, which building is that out of these?
It's the older bus barn.
Okay, the 1952.
So it says building.
Well, it says here it's in great condition.
It says buildings.
I think,
1950.
Is it 82?
I think it's the 52.
It,
Do I
before.
think-
Okay. Really?
Which one?
The new one is small storage barn.
Oh, okay.
Right, so it's important that I'm not sure that we've identified properly for the people's meeting which building we're talking about. We're talking about a 1950s building.
Yes.
Right, the 1952.
Yes.
So, but you have concerns about the other buildings or just that one?
So our concern is that the way that plot is, the board has just been trying to decide whether or not it's possible to deal with that building in a cost-effective way without starting over. And so we've gone through the process of having engineering consultants, and their suggestion, their opinion was that for what the needs are for that building, it can't be abated.
Most economical resolution is to demolish it and start over.
And that was done by who? Who did that assessment? Engineers or architect or?
Point Architect was the lead person in that, and they engaged a structural engineer out of Sheridan, and I forget the firm's name.
What month is that? Sorry.
December.
Okay, sometimes I make it up as I type here, guys. I think that pretty well said what you said, I hope.
Yes, that looks correct.
Okay. Very interesting. So what do you think, Brandon? Any comments? I mean, we've got a .27 building, so structurally, you know, but yet they've got mouse infestation. But yeah, it's well, I mean, I don't know what to say.
This is the one they had the plan on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a great solution there.
Right.
Yeah. There's no real process by which we follow in rules and regs that would push this to the top.
So I have a question. What we looked at as far as the supplemental budget bill, HB1, that is a huge concern for us, and now you understand why that's a huge concern. You know, we are moving forward to spend district money because we understand the position you're in. But should we sell that property? And that was, I mean, the whole reason for selling it was to be able to build a new bus barn to alleviate this, right?
Right.
But that will go back into the school capital construction account. So do you have a means, like you said, there's no way that you can move this up to the top of the list, but certainly if there was a condition that warranted an emergency, you would move it to the top of the list.
Yeah, this
right?
is
If there was a fire or there was a condition that was brought to your attention, you would evaluate that condition, right?
Yeah, there is external circumstances that are presented to the commission and the select committee. So one thing I have seen is the stretch, but they do language that says ending XYZ statute. So from a state's perspective, it could be cheaper to allow you guys to use your own cash from the sale of that asset to build the new one. It's massive effort and legislative guys involved to pull it off. What you'd do is it'd say they would allow you to move forward, notwithstanding the provision in the House Bill 1.
So let us we're kind of skipping down this meeting a little bit.
Process.
Go ahead and move forward. Thank you.
No, I wasn't moving forward. I wasn't moving forward to ignoring your comment. I think it's a really important one. I wanted to further talk about it.
There's an example.
So here's an example of a school district working through legislature commission, and what they did was in Douglas, Converse 1, they had 3 modulars, and they got new projects that were rural modulars, and they were replaced. And then they had some extra money left over from those projects, and Shawnee modular, which is at Orange Junction, it's kind of the junction just south on I-25 from Douglas. There's just to the east toward Lusk is a modular 5 miles off the I-25, and they were having some I gotta be careful, mouse infestation, and I mean mice like crazy in this educational building. So they went through and requested and were granted replacement or take those monies from the 3 other modulars left over and put toward the Shawnee modular to remedy. And that's why they had money already appropriated. That's why it says 0 here. So it didn't really cost the state any more money. They just reappropriated existing monies already approved to the district.
And Stephanie, this is Brandon. What Troy's talking about was exactly what I was thinking of in my head is this concept could be done if you worked with your local legislators and they would say, notwithstanding section, whatever it was, 312, for your project. So it can be done, but it's not an easy task.
So it's basically working with your local legislators and explaining the problem, bringing them over, giving them lunch, probably before you take them over to the last barn. But anyway, just communicating with them, showing them what the challenges are, and then basically what you wanted to do, and then how the state statute now has kind of undercut that, and then are they able to, in some type of legislative motion or way, come in and make an exception to that, or grant a project in such? I mean, that's the only thing we can think of.
Yeah, that's the only way we can do it.
You're correct. I mean, it becomes a legislative issue, but I mean, the statutory language in HB1 sunsets in June of 2020. And so yes, we're going to take a run at this however we can, right?
Yep. I mean, yeah, that's what they pay you all the big bucks for.
But that legislative action would have to be next year.
Right.
In the spring of 2020. That would be a budget year, so it would require two-thirds vote. If this House bill sunsets in June of 2020, unless that's extended, it might be just more practical to wait another year and a half.
Yeah, that's correct. If it's only tied to session law, it is tied to that budgetary period.
Yeah, my only caution on not doing any action is if they extend it, you're out another year.
Yeah, and
I would be doing something in case they didn't, because a lot of times they'll keep doing that same language.
Right. It'll just be
go
put
for
right
year after year after year.
perpetually.
There you go. That's
and I guess I would expect that, because if the idea is that any school property, the money from the sale of school property is going to go back to the state, I don't suppose that attitude will change anytime soon.
That was my thought, is the way the checkbooks are now and the revenue, I doubt they're going to say, oh, we're going to relax that.
Right. Yeah, the very first exception, grand exception.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, guys, that's as good as we can do for you. We apologize. We have limitations on our powers, obviously, and we'll just go through the normal process of prioritizing. And so let's review. And I know we're spending a lot of time here, but appreciate your time, and I think it's valuable. The other thought then is, as they were kind of asking for, I mean, in a way they weren't asking for, but is this an emergency, and could it qualify as an emergency in our rules and regs?
Well, I don't think they can, it wouldn't impede the ability of the district to deliver education.
Right.
Right? I mean, it's a bus barn or shop.
Let's see, where's our emergency ones? You remember?
It's
right there
in chapter 5.
Okay, now we're going to kind of bring you down one other rabbit hole, and it's emergency funding.
Yeah, so scroll down and it gives Article 3, Section 3 right there. So you have to give a detailed description in paragraph 1. 2 is the location. Taken by the
Okay,
district.
here we go, right here. Right?
Yep, estimated cost. That's the stuff you have to deliver. But
Ability to the district to provide educational programs required by law. Okay. So it's really tied to like preventing students from attending a building. I think it would be an extreme stretch to try to say that this is preventing students from attending their educational building to be, and then it's also, this is, by the way, temporary. Emergency money for temporary remedies and not permanent Yeah, temporary measures. I guess yeah, and okay. So anyway, that we wouldn't qualify for emergency according to rules and regs because it's not preventing students from going to school, and it's not a temporary means. Both those would be strikes against you. Boy, we're just kind of bears of bad news, aren't we?
You said it.
Yeah, a little bit.
We're the state Scrooges. Major maintenance. So let's go on to a more happy topic. Obviously, you guys have to abide by all state statutes with regard to the expenditure of them. You guys, this is just again house cleaning type of stuff, but you updated your work order statuses, which is important because it keeps our database clean. And then you guys did submit proposed major maintenance projects, and if they qualified, Steve has approved them. And you're not just confined to this time of year submitting them. If other things come up, you can submit them as you go, and he'll consider them. These are your major maintenance balances based on the 680 report at the end of June. We talked about your 10%. That's going to increase by about 130 more. Maybe you've spent some since June 30th. That would decrease that. Your 10% major maintenance, I think you guys are aware that that's for things that wouldn't necessarily qualify in the adequacy standards, such as teacherages, sports field lighting, things like that, scoreboards. But it still has to qualify for the definition, which is to replace or repair existing systems. I think that's about it there. This is just illustrative. Again, if someone above us asks for a facility plan, it's good to just show them, this is just last year's priorities from your highest priority to your lowest in expenditure or in amount of money. And then we broke that down building by building, same numbers, just building by building. This is, again, just illustrative. We don't expect you or anticipate you to defend your priorities. It's just in there and shows what you guys did last year and how you valued your major maintenance, how you used it. The other thing that we experience, every year we experience this, and legislators during committee meetings will ask, are the districts spending money on their highest needs, on their lowest condition scores? And so we just started and we're supposed to review these yearly, and that's why it's in here. We just let you guys, we pass this on to you. We let you address, these are 2 means poor scores, or 1 means failure. And all we do is let you guys respond to it, whether it's completed, and with some district notes. And if anybody up above us asks for anything, we just pass on what you've said and you've spoken for yourself. So that's kind of how we're staying accountable to legislators, the legislature as a whole, the governor's office, letting you guys speak for yourselves. That's about it. Here's basically what those scores represent on percentage of deficiency. And then you guys were kind of talking just a little bit on the front end of this, but we do try to be proactive in letting you know that another conditions assessment is coming soon. Every 4 years, we're required by state statute to go out and have a third-party consultant assess your building. We're going to put together the scope in September, go out, procure a professional, get them ready, and then next spring in April, it won't be April 1st, but around April 1st, we're going to send you guys before that, and we'll let you know there's some training in Casper. So Terry, I can't remember if you were around for the last one, training in Casper in 2016.
I was not.
Okay, so that training is really important. The reason is because it's only 4 hours. We try to do it in such a way that doesn't require you to take a lot of time out of your district. But we'll train you on the tool, how we do condition assessments, system by system, and show you what the assessors are looking for before they get there. And then when they get there, the importance of your role when they arrive. In the past, we've had school districts hand keys to the assessor. They have fun, bring the keys back at the end of the day. And that is not appropriate. because we need whoever's the most educated, knowledgeable with the buildings. That's who needs to walk next to those assessors, step by step, all day long, 2 days, however long they're in your district, and make sure they know all the deficiencies within your building, and they know so that they can most accurately do their assessment. And they always send those assessments back to the districts and let you review them before they apply a final score. And what they're looking for, we don't score them, you don't score them. What they're looking for is data, information, and then based on that data, they do the scores from a mathematical, pretty well an objective. Nothing's totally objective, but from a matrix that allows them to put a score based on deferred maintenance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. The last thing I was. Oh, go ahead.
This is Ray. I want to interrupt a little bit. That timeline, that December 4th, is that pretty concrete?
Yeah, we would put that in their contract, and absolute. Well, the December 4th is just a little bit of squishiness between the November 27, but yeah, we need to get that thing updated, and the reason is because we're going into that would be the next year's facility planning. So we want all that in the facility, the database, so that we can have accurate, up-to-date issues to talk about concerning building condition during the facility planning process.
My only question about that, when we're planning summer work, which is most of our work, I guess the sooner we know in the fall how the facility scored, the more chance we have to plan ahead for the following summer. But I guess it is what it is, and maybe Terry, maybe you'd know way before that how things are going to score out. So it was just a question.
I mean, we've got all the comments last assessment, and when we build that 5-year plan, we're looking at those and comparing those to what we're seeing. So
okay.
I don't know
That's fine.
Actually, I think, Ray, you would have some information if you needed it. And the reason is because you can see here at the final, well, it just matters where you're at on the schedule, but within about 30 days of the assessments, I think they try to push those back to the districts, and you would actually see information on each and every one of your systems. And I think they also score them, and you would see the scores. So they wouldn't be in the database, but they would be in the documents that are sent back for you guys to review. So I think you would see them probably, unless you're at the very end, at the very latest, you would see them in October. But you probably, if you were in the spring, you might be seeing these in June or July, depending on when the assessment team comes through.
Yeah, obviously the sooner we have that, the better off we are planning for the next summer. But that's fine. We can move on. Okay.
And the last thing I want to say here is we do have every once in a while superintendents or educators get a little upset because our assessment teams come in during the school. So when you have 500 and some buildings in 2.5 months to do it in, it's not going to happen. So we try to, we spend about $2.5 million doing it statewide. We don't want to spend $5 million. We can't justify that to a legislature. So anyway, we will come in the spring right before school gets out in summer 2020 there. We'll go through the 2.5 months of summer, and then we'll have to go into the fall just a little bit. We apologize for that, but there's just limitations and abilities that are limitations that we can't overcome other than to do a little bit. So but those assessors are trying to be sensitive not to disrupt your educational environment too much, but at the same time they are walking through your building.
Well, we'll go first to accommodate you.
There you go. we better write that immediately that PAR06 wants to be on the first of the schedule. Here's some component projects, and I'm doing this a little bit because you have a trustee with you as well. But at any rate, component projects are the capital projects, but they're there to supplement major maintenance. So a lot of districts, even though they get major maintenance and stuff, sometimes major maintenance isn't enough. It gets too thinned out in all your buildings. So districts are allowed through a process to submit for component projects to supplement those major maintenance. And you can see some of these. We've got a $5 million one for Douglas High School for HVAC replacement. And you can see sometimes they're in the millions. And so it doesn't necessarily always directly correlate to the size of the district. It's the size of the building and what the issue is going on there. So these become very valuable to districts. Now, I don't recall you guys submitting any this last year. They went through a prioritization process. We asked for 4 superintendents, 4 business managers, and 4 facility directors. So let me do my soliciting now with you. So, you know, and I know you guys, I can't recall if you've volunteered in the past. One of the things is, as money's become more and more precious and less abundant, it doesn't hurt to be on that volunteer committee out of the school districts, learn this process, and be able to see, you guys whoever did it would be able to score all 31 of these, recognize what people are submitting for, how they're putting together their data, and then submitting that. It would allow you to see that and to become better and better at that if you have an interest in applying for this in the future.
So those applications are due when?
Well, these have already gone through. They were from January through September of last year. And then after September 15th or 20th, the committee started scoring them and then finalized them in early December or late November. So these are done, they're gone with, and so they're now officially prioritized. We've presented them to the commission as an informational item, and we will use this list. If you're on this list, which you're not, if you were on this list, we'd use this list to make recommendations to the commission for funding. So the next time that will happen is the next biennial budget, which is, we'll do it in, next year, 2020. From January, right? Yep. January through September, and then that will roll into the next year, which would be, or the next biennial budget request. Golly, things come way too quick. Did I answer your question?
Yep, so we'll watch for you next January.
Yep.
Yep, January.
And you'll be volunteering, right?
I will come very close.
Okay. So anyway, just know, I mean, it does help knowing, you know, you'll be able to see these and you'll be able to at least understand what people are asking for and be able to accurately represent your needs if your major is short. So who knows? The challenge with this is individual legislators have expressed multiple times that they don't like this. But we're asking for more major maintenance on a regular basis and getting turned down at times. But your major maintenance has increased over the last several years, but no guarantee there. And we just want you to know this resource is available.
Great.
I made a very generic comment here, and so if no one has anything else, we'll move on. I could put a smiley face there and put Ray's name or something.
Yeah, that would work.
Okay, so now we're down. Hey, Amber, if I leave this, can you kind of come back and recorrect the formatting?
Yes, Troy, I can.
Okay, I'll just leave that page break there. So this is Brandon's job. I'm done talking for a few minutes. So one of the things we know that you districts do really well is you track educational bills as they move through the legislative process. So last year we started talking about, from a facility standpoint, wouldn't it be nice if we help? Now, we know that some of these bills are tracked in the educational process that you guys have that represents all 48 school districts, but some of these are not necessarily tracked by you. So what we're going to do here is Brandon's going to talk through them. He's going to talk about them and how they may have an effect, will have, or may have an effect on you concerning facilities. So Brandon, take us away.
So this year during the session, we have a couple bills Just so you know, the key is red means the bill died, green means the bill passed. I'll just touch base, even though it died. This was a second attempt, 2 sessions in a row to try to get the major maintenance payment to increase. Ray, as you may be aware, last year we had this bill through select committee, but it had attached with it the reporting requirement. This year the bill came through and it would have injected about another $40 million into major maintenance. But it failed, so unfortunately that didn't happen. One that did pass, though, is House Bill 52, Public Works and Contracts. If you're going to be doing any procurement of FF&E, the architect or procurator will have to specify products that are available from local vendors. Procurement amendments is in House Bill 65, and what this does is brings the dollar amounts in those up to present value, today's dollars. An example would be the bonding requirements of school districts was at $7,500. It's now brought up to $50,000. In 21-3-110, school districts had to do procurement for construction at $25,000 and below. That's brought up to $50,000. And then it also adjusts the advertisement to 2 weeks across the boards. Just a little updating of numbers. House Bill 78 is aid education major maintenance funding. And Stephanie, I don't know if you were following this one during the session. This takes your major maintenance payment and makes it quarterly. So you'll also want to analyze your deferred maintenance, what you have for liabilities, and what you have for a cash balance before this takes effect. This bill goes into effect July of 2020, and the intent of that effective date is so the districts can analyze their major maintenance, and also saves the money. So when they get into the quarterly process, they can cash flow these projects. House Bill 79 is funding of school projects and between loans. Some of these have been finalized. Check. House Bill 94. House Bill 94 died. That was about indemnifications. House Bill 152 is passed. If you're going to do any underground utilities, you want to take a look at this. Make sure the architect has that in your drawings as well. It's about notifications and marking all the utilities.
That went from what, $500 to $5,000 penalty?
Yeah, the penalty got pretty steep there because people were just digging right through utilities and not doing that one call. Senate File 49 is passed, so if you got any private schools coming in, it's an attempt to keep the facility children's the same as for our private schools and public school. So those kids in private have the same opportunities facility-wise. Senate File 57 is passed too since then. Yellow means it was full my process. So public records, requirements on when the district or when all state agencies and districts have to get public records out.
Hey Ray, just out of curiosity, we started kind of tracking stuff a lot closer because of this bill, but just our responsibilities. Do you guys have a pretty formal process when public records are requested and tracking that?
We don't have maybe the best system for tracking the requests, but we followed that Senate File 57. We're actually in the middle of rewriting our policy on records requests, but I don't think we'll have to change it too much. I think our policy, the board approved it on first reading. I think we'll be pretty good shape. We have to identify the person in the district who will be the contact for public.
Yeah, they had it at a felony at one time. So I wouldn't want to raise my hand to be that person. So, Senate File 74 procurement. This is their attempt to keep things local with state funds, and it's for the professional service providers, so architects and engineers.
Is that the one that says 50% of the monies have to stay in Wyoming?
It's a scaled system, so depending upon the size of the project, a certain portion has to be provided to locals. Next one, let's see. This one passed, but has to do with the other side of our division, which is construction management. It's about the Capitol Square complex. And then the last one is House Bill 1, which we just talked about. And I'll just go ahead and walk into what's been appropriated. So through this session, these are the projects that got funding. We got Satellite High School in Sweetwater, John C. Schiffer up in Sheridan 2. The reappropriations, which is that one that we talked about earlier, sort of a methodology similar to what you guys are facing. We have a charter school lease in Laramie. Commission has unanticipated accounts to deal with project needs if they get out of budget a little bit. Security projects, which you guys will be a beneficiary of. Some of that money will flow to you. Also, the major maintenance, you'll probably see a little uptick in your next payment. When we ran the calculations, we were short by 163,000, give or take. So we asked for $1 million. And then the last one is charter school here in. So one last thing we have, actually we addressed this in Cody, I believe in your guys' facility. In the budgeting process, how it's going to change based on new commission rules and regulations. So in the past, we had a pretty outlined process of capacity, then condition, and some other things such as facilities. But the new process that we'll be following will wait for 50% condition, 35% capacity, and then 15% educational suitability. So a little nuance in things. Yeah, bus bar and other facilities that have needs that aren't exactly fit the model.
So district, I just assume how assuming is. So I did put in here, and if it's not true, let me know. Just looking at your condition of your building, and you know, having to follow rules and regs from the commission. Also your capacity, I put district has no capital request for annual budget. So straight up, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
right?
Okay, I think you guys went in and talked about that. That's your transportation facility. Any other comments on that?
Could you move it to the side? We can't quite see.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Shrink it down. All right, so the traditional is there are really two. Here.
So same. Anything else we need to say there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, I guess the major maintenance question is really irrelevant. But we'll still get it. We'll still get it. We've got our attorney working on that one.
Okay, so I mean, that is really important still to us, so.
Okay.
So was the building of the new bus facility contingent upon the sale of the existing facility?
The board has currently approved the architects to begin architectural drawings. That was awarded after our SFC approval, and so that's been awarded at, what was that, Mr. Gardenhire, 179,000.
160-ish, 165.
The reason I asked that is, would you be able to still move forward and then design and build the facilities? Do you have enough cash on hand to do it? Or do you need to sell the old?
Yeah, we do not have, so our difficulty is huge because regardless of the location we chose, a major part of our plan for the building was what we consider to be local resources that are in that property.
Gotcha.
You know, that property was purchased at great expense and some public angst on Beacon Hill Road, and our responsibility is to return that to the school.
Yep.
It will now be put on hold.
Yeah, what I was thinking is if you had enough cash, you go ahead and move forward with another facility and then wait till that law sunsets. If it did, then sell it. Then put the cash in the bank.
You know, it was a tremendously difficult decision for the board to decide whether or not to rebuild on the current site or rebuild on Beacon Hill, and so we'll pretty much just go back to square one and look at our options for how we can protect our employees and how we can continue to maintain bus as well. And so, you know, just like all policymakers, we'll just go back and look at what our options are.
Understandable.
This is Steve McDonald, and I had a chance to sit down and meet with Terry for half hour, but I didn't have a chance to tour your district. And I'm just wondering if you can explain to me. I noticed in your properties we're talking the older bus barn here, and then there's a newer bus barn property. What's the difference between those?
There's 3 buildings on the bus barn complex, if you want to call it that. 2 of those are storage, and then one of them is a maintenance facility. The oldest one is the maintenance facility, and that's the one that's the primary concern.
Okay, so all 3 of those are on the same property?
Yeah.
Okay. And the plan was sell that piece of land and then just rebuild the old bus barn on that property?
Plan was to sell the old bus barn property once the new one was constructed and occupied. But in order to get enough funding to build the new facility, sell property on the Beacon Hill.
They were going to sell like a northern.
We're going to sell a chunk of that and then
Yeah.
build on the other
And
chunk?
they're going to build right here.
Oh.
It would take the sale of that open lot up on Beacon Hill plus the proceeds from the old bus garage, and we had that appraised at about $500,000, which we would need that money to build a new building.
Gotcha.
But looking at that House Bill 1, we couldn't sell the old bus garage or that hayfield and keep any of the money.
Terry, is that you running from the camera?
Maybe.
That's an exterminator.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah, we've got proof.
He's after a mouse.
And all these are little mice after him as he's running for his life. Rodents.
Bats.
Oh my word. Okay, you got to have a sense of humor somewhere along the line.
Oh, boy.
We're not really as concerned about the live rats as we are about the dead mice.
Yeah. Hey, Troy, I have a question again about the Capcom projects. So a year from now, they will be doing the budget, correct? The biennial budget should be up in January of 2020, which is next session. So will you be taking the next round of Capcom projects forward? Shouldn't that be next year, or am I confused? Or am I just plain?
Yeah, so this is Brandon. The process is right now we're gathering that information.
Yep.
In July, the commission will approve those projects that are identified during the facility planning right now. Then in August, it goes off to the select committee and the governor. In October, select committee will write a bill. In December, we'll be in front of JAC.
So we're looking at about $1 million upgrade to some HVAC system. Are we too late to submit that?
Yeah, as what well, as a right. So what building is it?
It's
Well-
across the district. There's 3 buildings that need work.
Okay. Everybody getting motion sickness here? So which 3?
High school, middle school, and east side.
Oh, good to know. Yeah, high school, east side, and then middle school, you said? Yeah. All those are in fantastic shape. So the problem with us, of course, is now that we have to conclude capacity, condition, and educational suitability, I would not anticipate these rising to the top of the list for consideration statewide. So the only other resource you would have is component funding, or well, your major maintenance. But outside of that, if you want capital funds, you'd have to go through the component funding process, which means you guys next year would have that opportunity through September, and then it would be considered the following March by the if it made it through and scored high enough on that for consideration for appropriation. So that would be 21. The earliest would be 2021 that you'd get any funds. Probably July 1.
And the component funding is that list of projects that you said the legislators are not overly supportive of, but it's directed by that committee where you suggested we volunteer participate with?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be valuable for you to do that, and it would help you educate you on just how to do that and what other districts are doing and how they're presenting their needs.
And the deadline for submitting that is
September of 2020, and we won't start that process till we'll kind of educate you in January, and then you'll have from January of next year through September to put together your documents and submit them, and then scoring those would individual scores would be done by the committee members, and then probably about late November is when a final list will be finalized by the committee as a whole for as a prioritization recommendation to the commission.
All right.
And this is Steve McDonald. Also, to add to that, we are allowing you to use major maintenance funds to do design work on those projects in anticipation of pulling them together next year. So, if you wanted to get some design work done on that, we would approve regular major maintenance dollars for you to do that design work.
And that is important, and the reason is because then you would have really, really good numbers to those and scopes, and it'd be professional, but you would know how it looked like for your future major maintenance on that. I think it would help prepare you if you wanted to request component funds. And it would give Terry. Go ahead.
Those projects would be acted on during the 2021 legislative session?
Yeah, yes, during that year. That's correct. Yep.
And so that's not a budget year.
Actually, let me think about this. No, it would go to the two, right. I apologize. That would prepare us
For facility planning, right?
Yeah, that would prepare us for facility planning. Then we'd present it, and then it would work through that next year in order to go to the next biennial budget. You're correct. So there's a delay there.
The projects that will go into the 2020 budget have already been determined.
They've been prioritized, correct. And then we will reference those in making recommendations to the commission. That's correct. So we do them the year before the biennial budget is presented, so that they're in line and we can actually talk about them during facility planning.
Yeah, so we would be 3 years out if we wanted to participate.
Yep. That's right.
All right.
Yep. The machine moves slowly. Okay, guys, is there a last question of you then before we close out? Are there any other ideas, concerns, issues that we have not discussed that the district would like to discuss before we close the meeting?
I have a question. This is Dawn. We were talking earlier in the meeting about the 10% major maintenance that could be used for security. And I saw that there were some from 2017 and 2018, and then we'll have some additional in 2019. Is there any timeline to spend those funds?
There is no timeline. It's just a spending authority, and in the bill it doesn't restrict it, and so you can have it as long as you need. Did they have 8%?
No.
No, they didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, we were good on that one. Okay, guys, anything else? You good?
I think we're good.
Okay, staff, anything from you?
No. Thanks for meeting with us today, though.
It's always a pleasure meeting with you guys. So we'll go ahead and shut down the meeting now. Thank you for attending, and we'll send this off for your preview signature.
All right, thanks.
Take care.
See ya.
Bye.